Bojoan din away McGonagall. Mino Gizgad. Gizagin. Apologies, the light's going to be a little weird today. My overhead light decided not to work properly, so but yeah, so also this is going to be a little bit of a different video than what I've done in the past. This is going to be more about me and less about a message for the collective. So what has come up for me is that it's time for me to be really honest about my story and how I came to be where I am today. Of course, I have to give you the version that is safe for the internet. So please understand that you're going to hear what I think is important to the rest of the videos that I will be posting, hopefully from now on. I have been very hesitant to show this part of my spiritual development and who I am, because I keep fearing that I'm going to fall into algorithm hell, where I get pushed into a side of YouTube that I don't want to be. And so as I tell my story, you'll probably figure out what that is without me coming out and overtly stating it. But what has really in the last week or so really presented itself to me is that I can't do this work anymore unless I have this really, unless I have this conversation, an honest conversation, and talk about where I come from, what has informed my current state of spiritual being, and where I hope to go as I continue to enter into elderhood. So here we go. And this may be a little wonky and chonky, and I hope that you can give me grace for that during this. Okay. So I came to know Christ in a really good way during high school, which was a long time ago, in the 1900s. And I was blessed to be surrounded by people who I think really did carry the spirit of Christ consciousness. And that is also to admit that because it was organized religion, there was a lot of doctrine and dogma and guilt and baggage and all of that got wrapped up into it. And as I grew into a young adult, the way that my life unfolded, I resorted to dogmatic ways of living into my Christianity. And then I moved across the country to the Pacific Northwest, and a couple of things happened when I moved out here. It took me a while to adjust to the culture. I didn't really feel like I fit in. There were a couple of things that helped me to fit in. I'm really grateful for those people and those opportunities and those experiences. The first thing that happened was I read a book called A Little Matter of Genocide by Ward Churchill. And reading that book shook my Christian faith to the absolute foundation. And I grew up knowing that we had some Native ancestry. It was talked about not very openly, but that it was there. And we had relatives who were able to find their way to identifying more formally with specifically the Cherokee tribe, but there were some other affiliations that were also talked about. So I was always interested in, I'm saying this to say I was always interested in Native American history and spirituality as well, although not as much spirituality at that point in time. So I read A Little Matter of, before that is when I had the dream, before I had my daughter, that I had two dreams. I had a council appear to me, and I won't go into the details of that because that's private, but that council appeared to me and made themselves known to me that they were my spiritual council. Then another dream, I had a warrior appear to me in my dream to give me a message. Let's leave it at that. And then I read A Little Matter of Genocide by Ward Churchill, and that shook my Christian belief to the foundation, because I literally was saying, if this is what it means to be a Christian, if the histories that are told in this book, that are documented in this book, are what it means to be a Christian, I'll have nothing to do with it. And so at that point in time, I started transitioning away from the mainstream type of relationship with Christ that I had grown up with, and started moving toward more of a spiritual quest. So I've spent a little time learning about Buddhism and Kabbalah, and also all mystery spiritual schools. So learning a little bit about Aleister Crowley. I don't know that much about him. I just know enough. And also learning about other spiritual ways of existing in the world. A lot of land-based, earth-based spiritual practices. So I started exploring a lot more. Then after that, after I read A Little Matter of Genocide, I happened to be out crabbing with my family, and there was an encounter with a native gentleman out on the dock who had a Rottweiler, and through conversation we discovered that the name of his Rottweiler was Twyla, and he asked me if I knew what that name meant, and I said no. At that point I was very curious because I had never been able to find a meaning for my name, and he said it's Chippewa for little flower. And I was like, oh man, that's so cool. Wow, that's really neat. And I was like, I hadn't really thought about the Chippewa. That's awesome. So a couple of days later, I was visiting my paternal grandmother who lived here, and was just talking with her. And I was like, oh yeah, by the way, this happened, and this guy told me what my name meant, and I thought it was really cool. And she was like, well, you know you're Chippewa, right? I was like, what? No, what? And she said, yeah, your great-grandmother on your dad's side was a full-blood Chippewa, but she had been adopted out to a white family and never claimed her heritage. So that is my oral history. Now, I tell that in this forum so that everyone knows that I'm very careful about how I claim that identity. I didn't grow up with the culture. I didn't grow up with the traditions. I don't know my clan. I have been very fortunate to find a community of Ojibwe and Anishinaabe people here in the Pacific Northwest who allow me to, explore my identity and to learn more about the cultures and the traditions. And I never, ever, ever will step in front of them or claim any sort of agency with regard to being an Ojibwe Kwe. I know who I am. I know who I'm not. And it informs everything that I do spiritually. So I tell you all of this to tell you that I live in at least two worlds. I live in a world where I regularly seek guidance and help from saints and icons, specifically Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Christ Yeshua, Archangel Michael, and others. You know who you are. And I also cling in and request guidance and assistance from my angels, my ancestors, my guides, and my guardians. And within those groups of entities is where my counsel lives. And they inform me and guide me along my spiritual path. So I'm going to start talking to you more about how I am learning all of these things and how we can lean into a more spiritual way of honoring Christ consciousness energy. One of the reasons why I lean so hard into the 7 grandfather teachings, I mentioned earlier that I explored a lot of different spiritual traditions, and there was always one truth that stood out in all of the traditions, and that is love is the way. Love is the way. And in order to love others, you have to love yourself. And the way to love yourself in a healthy way, I believe, is by following the 7 grandfather teachings of Anishinaabe culture. And so that's one of the reasons why I lean so heavily into the 7 grandfather teachings. It is, for me, in my understanding of it, and I'm still learning a ton about it, it is the closest, it is Christ consciousness, but before Christ consciousness, if that makes sense. This is why I didn't want to talk about all this stuff, because even just saying the word, I feel like is going to bring me so much unwanted FYPs. But anyway, I'm still working all that out, like maybe the language around it. So bear with me. But I do believe that if we're going to find our way back to our grace, our sovereignty, our spiritual sanctity as human beings, the 7 grandfather teachings, for me, are the way to do that. So, yeah, I wanted to share this with you guys so that you understand how my spiritual practice is informed. What I'm going to be talking about in the future is probably going to shift a little bit. I'm still going to use the Star Wars cards. I'm still going to use the angel numbers. But I think you're going to hear me start talking more about concrete ways to find our ways, to find our wells of grace, which is our superpower. That's all I'm here to talk about, honestly. Grace is your superpower. That is absolutely that is it. Like, I don't know if you hear nothing else from me, please hear grace is your superpower. I think I just spit. Grace is your superpower, and grace is the way that we learn to live with each other again as sovereign, sacred human beings on this sovereign, sacred planet. That's all. And whatever pathway gets you to that, I'm all for it, as long as it doesn't hurt people. That's why the 7 grandfather teachings help us to learn how to walk that path in a good way. Okay, that's it. That's me. Yeah, that's me. And I hope you like it. And I hope it makes sense. And yeah, I'll fight the algorithm as best I can. So more 7 grandfather teachings in the future, for sure. Going to stay consistent with Star Wars cards because I love them. Maybe bring in some other cards that have meaning for me. And the angel numbers cards. Okay, what do we got today? Oh. Okay. I don't know really how to interpret this, but hopefully it means something to someone out there. General Organa. Hope is like the sun. If you only believe in it when you see it, you'll never make it through the night. Don't look to others to give you the hope that you will succeed. That hope is already inside of you. Your grace is already inside of you. What if we change that? Grace is like the sun. If you only believe in it when you see it, you'll never make it through the night. Don't look to others to give you the grace that you need to succeed. That grace is already inside you. Yeah, I like it. I think that works. Let me know. Let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know in the comments what you think about my story. If it means something to you, if it resonates with you, if you have experienced something similar where you were brought up in the church and you know there's goodness in, you know, parts of that story of Christ. If you feel an affinity for the saints, the archangels, but you don't want to mess around with that because of all the baggage attached to it. No, maybe that's something we can talk about a little bit. It's been a journey. I mean, I'm talking like 25 fucking years it's taken me to get here. Okay. I do like this one. 1144. High vibes. I'm going to put up a little more. Just move my fat finger here. You can pause it if you want to read it. Okay, high vibes. Oh, good Lord. I'm going to do this without my glasses. Divine blessings, abundance, grand opportunities, synchronicity, faith, life purpose, soul's calling. Love, joy, and new happiness are just around the corner waiting for you. What's coming is beyond anything you've imagined, a rare opportunity or an exciting encounter with like-minded souls that will far exceed your expectations. Trust that something incredible is on the way. Yeah, I think this is a really good, for me, it's an affirmation of why it is important that we start talking about finding our way to grace. High vibes are on the way. And knowing what I know about our history on this planet and knowing what I know especially about Native American history, and Native American history isn't the only history that talks about oppression, but that's my jam. So knowing what I know about that history, what I can tell you is we're gonna make the same mistakes again this next go round if we don't find our way to being gracious with ourselves and with each other. And our 7 grandfather teachings can lead us there. So there's that. All right, I did want to pull this other one. Okay, 1010. 1010, trust the journey. Clarity, patience, momentum, insight, happiness, progress, self-discovery, unconditional love. It's time to turn your long-held ideas into actions. Soon you'll connect with the right people, encounter favorable circumstances, and access the necessary resources. As a result, you'll experience joy and new opportunities. Trust the journey and have faith in the process. All right, that's enough for me, y'all. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please leave a like. I appreciate everyone who takes a gander at these. And like I said, leave a comment if you know this resonated with you and you wanted to talk a little bit more about how the journey has been for you, or whether or not you want to know more about grace. I'm going to keep talking about it, so whether you want to know about it, I'm going to do it. I hope you join me. Okay, Mama P.